Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you guys how my wedding planning has been. Today's video will be focusing on planning a wedding during the pandemic, which is during the COVID-19 right now. Of course, it's not the best time to plan or to have your wedding, but if you look on the bright side, it's actually not that bad. So I come up with like a few points on the pros and the cons of having a wedding or planning a wedding during the pandemic. If I were to plan my wedding last year in 2020 when COVID-19 was still very new and we weren't very sure what we were dealing with, there will be more concern that I will have compared to now, because now like a lot of countries have been rolling out the vaccine, especially in Singapore. A lot of the elderlies, a lot of the working adults, especially the frontline workers, have already taken the vaccine. So on that note, I'm not so worried about the uncertainties that I might have for my wedding for this year, because initially when I was thinking of the date to hold my wedding, I was actually quite concerned because I didn't know whether the situation, like the COVID situation, will get better or get worse in the second half of the year. I have a few points on the pros and the cons, the benefits and the downside of having a wedding during the pandemic. So let's start with the pros. So the first good point about having a wedding during the pandemic is that, as you know, a lot of hotel banquet or the ballrooms, they actually require a minimum guaranteed of maybe 200 or even 300 guests in order for you to book the venue, especially if you're looking at those higher end hotels or those hotels with bigger ballroom like Ritz-Carlton, JW Marriott, or even W Singapore, or even like Fullerton. All these hotels are considered to be higher end hotels. Their ballroom will usually require like a minimum of 300 guests for weekends dinner. So if you are planning a wedding during COVID-19, especially based on the current restrictions we have in Singapore, you are actually not obligated to sign their pre-COVID packages. So before COVID-19 happened, the numbers are pretty inflexible. Like in order for you to secure the venue with these hotels, you actually need to commit to a certain number of minimum pax, because like from the hotel's point of view, they actually have to guarantee their revenue or their profit for their night. Especially if you're looking for a Saturday dinner, that is actually the most expensive slot to hold your wedding, because it is actually the best slot to have your wedding. Because if you think about it, like usually people would prefer a wedding dinner than a wedding lunch, because I just feel that dinner is more formal compared to like lunch. Imagine if I were the bride and I were to change my evening gown for my lunch reception. It doesn't really make sense to me. So I never considered to have a wedding lunch, even though like the cost between wedding dinner and wedding lunch is quite a lot, but I don't mind spending a little bit more considering the fact that it's just once in a lifetime. Of course, another point is that I'll be having church wedding, which is my solemnization in the morning, so everything will be just very rushed and very packed. So I just think that Saturday dinner is the best time to have your banquet. The next day is Sunday, so your guests won't have to like rush back compared to if you were to have your wedding on a Sunday, like lunch or dinner. So the next day is still off day, so your guests can enjoy the banquet and enjoy your event without any like worries or anything. So I just feel that Saturday is like the best day to have your wedding lunch or your wedding dinner, but of course dinner is still better. Okay, so back to the minimum pax. So most of the hotels, they have really revised the minimum pax required for the weddings because of the updated government regulations, which is 250 pax maximum. Anything above 100, all the guests who are not vaccinated actually have to go for the pre-event testing, which is called PET. Yep. Thankfully for our banquet, we actually signed the contract in January. So back then in January, the government restriction was still at 100 pax. Before COVID happened, the ballroom in W, it requires a minimum of 300 guests for weekend dinners. The ballroom in W is actually very big compared to like the other ballrooms that I've viewed in Singapore. So I feel that it actually justifies, or it actually makes sense why they actually require 300 guests, because the ballroom is actually big enough to even like support up to like 400 guests, I think. So yep, that is the first pro that I have if you are considering to have your wedding during COVID-19. So I've seen like some brides or some grooms on some forum in Singapore. Of course, before COVID, they actually have to invite their primary school friends or some of their long lost friends to their dinner banquet or to their wedding, because they have to hit like the minimum number of guests that they have already committed to the hotel. For me, it really doesn't make sense, because I don't believe in inviting people that I've not spoken to for like years, because first of all, they are not very involved in my life anymore, and second, I want like all my guests who are there for my wedding to be able to like feel happy or to celebrate the union of me and my fiance or husband to be, than to just be there to fill up the number, if it makes sense. So every person that I'm going to invite to my wedding definitely means something to me. They are not just there to fill out the number, so that's for sure. And because of the fact that most of the ballrooms in Singapore have this like minimum guest guaranteed, it is very difficult for couples who have small families to commit to the number. Of course, if you're okay with having like a small intimate wedding, there are always like smaller ballrooms in Singapore that you can look for, like the one that I visited in Outpost Hotel. That ballroom is actually pretty small and cozy, so the minimum guest required is only 120, which I think is pretty easy to hit. Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to hit like, depending on how many friends or how many family members you are going to invite. For couples who have like smaller families, it's really very difficult to hit like 300 or even like 350 guests unless you have a lot of colleagues or a lot of friends that you want to invite. But I'm just curious, like out of all the 300 or 400 or 500 people that you invite, how many of them truly care about your marriage? So yeah, that's something to think about. I make sure that whatever number that I commit to the hotel, it is a number that I'm very comfortable and I'm very certain that we can hit. So that is something that I think is very important, and all couples should bear in mind when you sign the package with the hotel. Don't ever put yourself in a situation whereby you have to upgrade the menu or you have to like invite people that you're not close to just because you have to hit the number that you have committed to the hotel. Yeah. So because of COVID, I think this is actually a good thing. So this also brings me to my next point, which is with COVID-19, you can actually invite lesser people to your wedding. So like I mentioned just now, the restriction back then in Q1 2021, it was only like 100 pax wedding. So I feel that if the restriction is 100 pax, there's like a reason, like it's a valid reason for you not to invite some of the people or some of the relatives or even some of the colleagues that you're not very close to, because 100 people is actually very little for a wedding. And even for ourselves, I don't think we can keep it to 100 because it's really very limited, and there are so many people that we want to invite to our wedding to celebrate the union of me and Sean. So I think 100 pax is really a bit 勉强. What is it in English? So it's really like a bit difficult because it's really very little, and I don't think we can have a 100 pax wedding. That would mean that we have to exclude like some people that we actually care about. If you have a smaller family or you just want to have like a small and cozy wedding, this is great for you. So I think having a small and intimate wedding is actually the trend now, because a lot of couples don't see the need of having a very large and very extravagant wedding. If you are okay and you are happy with small and intimate wedding, why not? And with COVID, it's like a great excuse to just go with like a small and cozy and intimate wedding. This also brings me to my next point, which is having a small and cozy and intimate wedding, and also with the minimum pax adjusted by the hotel, it also means that you can save a lot of money for your wedding. If you think about it, if you were to have like 300 guests for your wedding, the cost is definitely much higher compared to if you were to have like a smaller scale wedding. So imagine if you were to cut down your wedding by like half, or if you're only holding the wedding for like 50 or 100 pax, there are actually a lot of things that you can do without. So you don't have to rent like a few sets of different gowns, you can just like maybe do with one, or you also don't need very elaborated wedding styling or wedding decoration, because it's just going to be your family member and very close friends. So you can just do with like very simple and very minimum decorations if that's something that you're going for. So I feel that having a small and cozy wedding will really save a lot of money compared to holding a wedding for like 300 guests. So yeah, I think that's a great advantage of having your wedding during the pandemic. So let's move on to the cons. So the first con is definitely there are more restrictions in terms of like wearing masks, and people have to like observe social distancing. It is still less convenient compared to like pre-COVID time. So other than the more restrictions, the next con will be there will be slightly more uncertainties because you are not sure whether you can proceed with the wedding or not, and you might even have to like postpone or cancel your wedding, like what happened to my friends. But since now I'm planning my wedding in August 2021, hopefully by then more Singaporeans have taken the vaccine. That being said, it is a pandemic and we are all in this together. So don't let this dampen your wedding prep mood. So that's why I tell myself I'm still very happily planning for my wedding, even though it's not the most ideal situation or it's not like as amazing as how it used to be, but thinking about the fact that COVID might last for another like year or two, so there's really like not much choice. So I'm just like taking it positively and looking at the bright side of having a wedding during the pandemic. So whatever that I want for my wedding or whatever that I've envisioned, I will still bring it to life despite COVID. In terms of like the decoration, the planning, my dresses or whatever, I will still plan it in a way that I've always wanted it to be, if it makes sense. So I will not do anything because there is COVID. That doesn't mean that I will break the law lah. So yeah, I feel that these are the points that you can think about, and of course there are other wedding planning tips that I have. They are not COVID related, so I'll probably do another video on that. So today's video is mainly focusing on what you should know or what are the pros and the cons when you're planning your wedding during COVID. So I hope these points are helpful to you or helpful to any bride-to-be out there. So that being said, I still hope that you enjoy your wedding planning progress as much as I am enjoying mine. And if you have any questions for me or you have any wedding related questions, you can check out my Instagram or you can comment down below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!